Good evening and welcome. I'm Vincent McCory. This is Africa 54. Ethiopian Prime Minister Abiy Ahmed is moving forward with political and economic reforms in response to demands from protesters, many of whom were killed during demonstrations. He has replaced the chiefs of two branches of the security services. Ahmed tapped Sare Mekonnen to lead the armed forces, and he named Aden Mohammed to lead the National Intelligence and Security Service. Security forces killed hundreds of people during unrest that began in 2015 as protesters pushed for reforms, leading to a state of emergency, which has now been lifted. The reshuffle comes days after Prime Minister extended an olive branch with neighboring Eritrea, with whom Ethiopia has been embroiled in a bitter border spat ever since the two countries fought each other over a disputed town in 1998 to 2000. The International Criminal Court has overturned the war crimes conviction of Congolese politician Jean-Pierre Bemba on appeal. Bemba appealed the verdict months after the ruling, citing numerous procedural and legal errors in the process. He also claimed there were grounds for a mistrial. Presiding Judge Christine van den Wijngaard said Bemba could not be held responsible for atrocities committed by troops under his control in neighboring Central African Republic, adding that trial judges had not considered the efforts he made to stop crimes once he became aware of them. Bemba, the former vice president of the Democratic Republic of Congo, had been sentenced by the International Criminal Court to 18 years in prison in June 2016 on 5 counts of war crimes and crimes against humanity, including murder and rape. It was also the first time the ICC had heard a case that focused on sexual violence as a weapon of war. The decision by the government of Kenya to hire Cuban doctors is being met by opposition from a doctors' union that says the money could be used to employ local physicians instead. President Uhuru Kenyatta made the deal last year, and the plan was accelerated after his state visit to Cuba in March. Anyang' Nyong'o, Kisumu County Governor, joins me by phone from Kisumu City to discuss this issue. Good evening, Governor.
Good evening. How are you?
I'm fine. Now, you were one of those who actually has you accompanied the president on this trip to Cuba, and you are very much in support of this. Why are the union members of the medical practitioners opposed to the Cuban doctors coming to Kenya?
I think they are getting the issue wrong. The government has not refused to engage with the doctors on improving the doctors' salaries. The government simply says that we are importing Cuban doctors because we want to learn from them, particularly their experience regarding family health. Now, you know, we are establishing a universal health insurance scheme, and Cuba has had the best universal health insurance scheme in which their doctors play a critical role. Now, this is why we went to Cuba for a learning process, for cooperation, and for the use of Cuban doctors in various areas of medical specialty.
Now, Governor Nyong'o, there are some of those of the members of the medical union who say there are many Kenyans who could do the same jobs or who could be paid a little more in order to work in those hospitals, like perhaps those in Kisumu and elsewhere. What do you say?
Well, that argument has been with us ever since I was Minister of Medical Services. I don't think that argument will be held at all, either by refusing to have Cuban doctors or by paying them. There's absolutely no relationship between the Cuban doctors' project and the issue of improving the condition of working of the doctors. That condition of working of the doctors can be discussed as a separate issue and handled effectively. I think the doctors are getting it wrong by creating the Cuban doctors thing with the fact that the money for improving their work condition, the money for paying them, must only come from this money being paid to the Cuban doctors. I think it's a wrong argument as far as I'm concerned.
So we know that the government has said that some of these doctors will be deployed to counties such as Kisumu County. Please, can you help us understand how they will benefit your county, for example?
One, with every county we get 2 doctors. Our health ministers from every county met and discussed the various specialties which the Cuban doctors are bringing. And then the Ministry of Health, they know the prevalence of diseases around the nation. So various specialists will be deployed to areas where they are most needed. Secondly, within each region, like here in Kisumu, we have what we call West Region Economic Block that contains 14 counties with a population about 14 million. We have decided that we shall share our doctors so that if I have a neurosurgeon and an oncologist in Kisumu, and somebody in Kericho receives a heart specialist and an internal medicine expert, well, we can have the neurosurgeon oncologist having here for 1 month or 2 months, and then we exchange depending on the need of our various countries. So that principle of exchanging Cuban doctors within various regions is quite accepted to the Council of Governors, who is fully behind the Cuban project.
Now, in terms of the numbers, are they necessarily going to alleviate the problems we have, especially in the really far-flung regions of Kenya, whether it is Turkana, Garissa, or even parts of the Nyanza region?
Well, I mean, we have had many doctors in this country for several years. We have never completely alleviated this problem. The Cuban doctors are not coming here to perform a miracle. The Cuban doctors are going to come here to give us their expertise. And while they are here for 2 years, to learn from them, particularly on the importance of having an effective primary health care system and family medicine as a fundamental part of the universal health care. Without proper primary health care system, preventive health care, and family medicine, a universal health coverage cannot succeed. And that is where Cuba has excelled in the whole world. I remember when I was Minister for Medical Services, I attended a global conference on preventive and primary health care in Cuba. There were 6,000 delegates, and 800 of those delegates were Americans. So even the U.S. knows that there are something to learn from Cuba.
Mm-hmm. Well, Governor, I want to thank you very much for joining us today. Anyang' Nyong'o is the governor of Kisumu County in Western Kenya. Thank you, Governor. Now, this just into VOA, the U.S. Embassy in Mozambique has issued an advisory Friday posted on its website saying it has information pointing to the likelihood of imminent attacks in the country's north, which has been rocked by attacks blamed on jihadists. The embassy in Maputo is strongly advising American citizens in the district headquarters of Palma to consider departing the area immediately. U.S. President Donald Trump hosted a dinner at the White House this week, marking the end of the daily fast during Ramadan, the first since he took office in 2017. The guest list included the diplomatic corps, but not American Muslim organizations, who held their own counter-iftar outside the White House. VOA's Patsy Widakuswara has more.
The President of the United States.
At the White House, a message from President Trump, host of the iftar or breaking of the fast during the Muslim holy month of Ramadan.
Together this evening, we honor a sacred tradition of one of the world's great religions. Iftars mark the coming together of families and friends to celebrate a timeless message of peace, clarity, and love. There is great love.
Quite a different tone from his previous statements about Islam dating back to the campaign trail.
Donald J. Trump is calling for a total and complete shutdown of Muslims entering the United States.
To the executive order he issued a week into his presidency, barring U.S. entry to citizens of 7 Muslim-majority countries. For more than 2 decades, U.S. presidents hosted White House iftars. Trump broke that tradition last year. This year's iftar was seen as a gesture of goodwill by Indonesian Ambassador Budibowo Laksono, who sat next to the president.
I think President Trump trying to convey a very strong message that America is a friend of our Muslim world. And I believe the message will be well received.
Hosting an iftar is important for a president who needs to engage with the Muslim world to counter the threat of violent extremism, says Farah Pandith, a former State Department representative to Muslim communities.
You cannot eradicate that kind of threat with just hard power. You have to use soft power as well. And the strategy going forward to actually eliminate the ideology of extremists means that you must puncture the us versus them narrative, and you have to be very clear that America is not at war with Islam.
Say it loud, say it clear. But Trump's iftar feast didn't include American Muslim organizations who held their own counter-iftar outside.
If the President of the United States wants to engage with the American Muslim community, then he should invite and put on a level playing field to meet with American Muslim leaders, and he is not.
The White House iftar may have been a gesture of goodwill, but Ramadan is a time when Muslims reflect not only on their actions, but also on the intention of those actions. During this Ramadan, some are also reflecting on the White House's intentions. Patsy Widakuswara, VOA News, Washington.
But prayer is an especially important part of Ramadan observances this month. And for Muslims in Aurora, Colorado, that happens at the Dara Tawhid Mosque. The mosque is not just a focus for the religious community, it is part of a center for the entire community with a swimming pool, tennis courts and a gym. As viewers Alam Bahanan learned, the idea was to attract young Muslims to come to the mosque to pray and play. Viewers Ariana Arifin narrates his reports.
In the town of Aurora, Colorado, about 200 Muslims come to Dar al-Tawhid Mosque to pray every Friday. For many years, the building was neglected and run down. But in 2015, the Muslim community purchased it and rebuilt it into a place to come together.
Or the mandatory fast, you would find our standing.
One of the challenges Muslims in America feel is the difficulty in passing on Islamic teachings and tradition to their children.
Having only a musalla, a place where you come and pray, is not going to help our children. Is not going to attract them to our communities again. Is not going to bring them to the mosques. So you have to offer the social side, the sports side, the physical side. So we purchased that recreational center, which used to belong to that community around us.
That approach seems to have worked. Many children come to the mosque to pray and play. The Muslim community bought the center for about $2.5 million and has slowly built it back into shape.
So some brothers come and lift weights and everything here, mashallah. So the youth especially, they like this space, they come and exercise. We also have this toddler room. And mashallah, under the age of 4 or 5, I think, kids come here and mashallah, we have a good program that they're learning Arabic, little kids.
The purchase and rebuilding of the community center faced some backlash in the beginning. But seeing that the building was open to the general public, Aurora residents came to accept it. For Alam Burhanan in Aurora, Colorado, Ariano Arifin, VOA News.
A Minnesota teenager is the first American to win the prestigious Dubai International Quran Recitation Contest. Mahmoud Maskadi has the story from Minneapolis.
Ahmed Burhan Mohammed received a hero's welcome on his return to Minnesota after the 16-year-old topped more than 100 competitors at the Dubai International Quran Recitation Contest.
Yeah, I was pretty surprised. They told me I was top 10, but I didn't know what place I was going to get, so alhamdulillah.
Mohammed is the first American to win the $68,000 prize. Joining the Somali American at the top of the ranks was a strong showing by Africans, with the contestants from Libya, Tunisia and Algeria placing second, third and fourth, respectively.
The competition was very competitive. I was competing with 103 contestants from all around the world. Some of them countries I never have heard of in my life. Caribbean islands, all over, everywhere.
Mohammed came to the United States when he was 2 years old. and credits his parents and teachers with helping him win the 22nd edition of Dubai contest, which is one of the most prestigious in the Muslim world. Muhammad says he started studying the Quran when he was 7 and memorized the entire text within 5 years. Muhammad's father, Burhan Muhammad Ilmi, says all the help for his son has paid off.
We put a lot of effort into helping him, and the teachers put in huge efforts as well.
Sheikh Abdurrazzaq Hashi is the Imam of Abu Bakr Islamic Center, where Muhammad studied. He says the win in Dubai is a huge achievement for all Muslim Americans.
The American media is proud of Burhan's win. All we want as a community was to show Americans that they can be proud of us, and this win shows that we have achieved that accomplishment. Now we are hoping Americans see the goodness of Islam and Muslims as well as the quality of American Muslims living in the U.S.
Ahmed Burhan Muhammad will enter his final year of high school later this year and says he hopes to become a doctor. Mahmoud Mas'adi for VOA News, Minneapolis.
Well, President Donald Trump has landed in Canada Friday for the G7 summit. One day earlier, Trump lashed out at host Justin Trudeau, and the White House announced Donald Trump would skip some of the sessions. In 2 tweets on Thursday evening, Trump accused the Canadian Prime Minister as well as French President Emmanuel Macron of charging the U.S. massive tariffs and creating non-monetary barriers. Trump also said Trudeau was being indignant about the cross-border trade relationship. Trump's outburst comes as leaders from the United Kingdom, Italy, Japan, Germany and the United Kingdom, plus the European Union, begin their annual meeting to see if they can collaborate and possibly reach an accord on global security and the international economy. The White House says Trump will leave the summit on Saturday morning and travel to Singapore in anticipation of his upcoming meeting with North Korea's leader Kim Jong-un on Tuesday.
Why are we having a meeting without Russia being in the meeting? And I would recommend, and it's up to them, but Russia should be in the meeting. It should be a part of it. You know, whether you like it or not, and it may not be politically correct, but we have a world to run. And in the G7, which used to be the G8, they threw Russia out. They should let Russia come back in, because we should have Russia at the negotiating table.
Well, Trump says that he will invite North Korea's Kim Jong-un to the United States in their June 12th meeting in Singapore, if it goes well. Now, U.S. celebrity chef Anthony Bourdain, a frequent visitor to Africa and host of CNN's food and travel-focused Parts Unknown television series, has died on Friday at the age of 61. In a statement, CNN says Bourdain hanged himself. He was found dead in a hotel room in Strasbourg, France, where he had been working on an upcoming episode of his program. Some of the African nations Bourdain reported from included Nigeria, South Africa, Senegal, Liberia, Ghana, Congo, and Ethiopia. Well, we want to know what you think about Africa 54 and the stories we cover. Join the conversation on Facebook. The address is Africa 54. We're also streaming our show live on Facebook, so check us out and share our show with your friends. Find me on Twitter at VOA Vince McCory. You're watching Africa 54. In a moment, an all-female cast steals the show in the summer's most anticipated heist film. But first, here's a recap on Friday's headlines.
More than 40 migrants from Ethiopia are dead and 16 are missing after a boat capsized off the coast of Yemen. In South Africa, former President Jacob Zuma's case is delayed until July 27th in order for his lawyers to prepare for trial. He was in court Friday facing corruption charges. We stay in South Africa, where residents illegally seize land and build provisional shelters outside of Cape Town during the debate over land redistribution based on ethnic groups. Trucks carrying crude oil reach Mombasa, making Kenya the first country in East Africa region to successfully export oil. Finally, in Madagascar, 4 women are now able to install and maintain solar panels after 6 months of training in India, sponsored by the NGOs, the World Wildlife Fund and Barefoot College.
Welcome back to Africa 54, and here's what's trending. Nearly 200 toy manufacturers from around the world are exhibiting their latest delights at the Tokyo Toy Show. While the show stresses its global nature, many of the exhibits are classically only in Japan, with more Godzilla and Hello Kitty than even the most enthusiastic fan could handle. A prime example, an applauding robot for solo karaoke artists. The singer takes the pint-sized companion with 2 hands sticking out of its head to the karaoke booth, and it claps in time along to the music and enthusiastically applauds when the hit is finished. Next up, an array of tech talents is attending TechCrunch Tel Aviv. The event's startup pavilion is drawing over 200 early-stage startups in cybersecurity, mobility, robotics, fintech and biotech, and more. US-based Tap Systems entry is a tapping device intended to be used instead of a keyboard or mouse. It's called Tap. Depending on which fingers you touch, it will send a letter, a character, a command to a Bluetooth-enabled device. Meanwhile, for cyclists all too aware of the dangers of bike riding in busy urban areas, Road Warriors represents wearable turn signals that sync up with their navigation app. The signs point right, left, and signal a stop to nearby vehicles. Well, and finally, Chinese electronics maker TCL has launched a high-end smartphone in the United States that it developed with Canada's BlackBerry, touting security and privacy features to distinguish it from other devices. BlackBerry digitally audits phones built through the partnership to make sure no unapproved software is installed on them, and also signs off on all software update to the phones remotely installed by wireless carriers. The K2, which retails for $649, features a BlackBerry app that helps users see and manage how data is used by other apps. A second application creates private folders for documents that enable users to prevent them from being uploaded to the cloud. And that's what's trending today. Now, a star-studded all-female cast beefs up Hollywood's latest heist film, Ocean's 8 by filmmaker Gary Ross. The new release marks a departure from the all-male gang of tuxedo-clad cons, both in the original 1960s flick Ocean's 11 with Frank Sinatra and Dean Martin, and in the 2001 remake with George Clooney and Brad Pitt. So how does the new female-driven plot stack up against its all-female predecessors? Here's VOA's Penelope Pulu.
In 3.5 weeks, the Met will be hosting its annual ball. And we are going to rob it, not the ball itself.
On the neck of Daphne Kluger.
Valued at over $100 million.
$150 million, actually.
Hunger Games director Gary Ross felt it was time for an Ocean's movie with a female cast.
I realized there'd never been an ensemble like this. There'd never been a bunch of women coming together to pull off a job like this, and I could point to, scores of male movies that were like that. And so the mere fact that it didn't exist sort of told me that all the more reason to do it.
Even if this was possible, you'd need 20 people.
7 people.
Why do you need to do this?
Because it's what I'm good at. 7 women, 8 with Debbie in the lead, take on Debbie's plan.
How long did it take you to figure all this out?
5 years, 8 months, and 12 days. That was the time Debbie Ocean, the sister of the now deceased Danny Ocean, the Ocean's 11 lead con artist, played by George Clooney, spent in jail for art forgery.
She's the mastermind. She comes from a family of thieves. Her job is to just assemble the best and let them do some stealing.
Gary Ross's job was to assemble a cast of 8 dynamic women on top of their game in the film and music industry today. Next to Sandra Bullock is Cate Blanchett as her close friend Lou and partner in crime. Helena Bonham Carter plays the bankrupt clothes designer who gets in the game out of desperation. Rihanna is the computer hacker who sabotages security cameras at the Met. Comedienne Mindy Kaling plays the dexterous jeweler who can disassemble the legendary diamond necklace inside the Met in no time.
Can't we just go to this? Do we have to steal stuff?
Yes. And though they have their eyes on the prize, a $150 million Cartier necklace, their heist is also a dare, seeing if they can get away with stealing an impossibly large piece of jewelry at a celebrity ball while the world is watching. Another major character is New York's famous Metropolitan Museum of Art, where the cast filmed for over 2 weeks. Ocean's 8 recreates the annual Met Ball with luxurious costumes, beautiful people, and lots of diamonds. No one is more fitting to be at the center of this glamour and glitz than Anne Hathaway, playing vain and self-centered Daphne Kluger.
She's so kind of wild and out there and big and into herself, and it was really fun to get to play someone who occupies a world that I know so well, but I mean, hopefully isn't anything like me.
Ocean's 8 is a visually rich summer flick where a group of women bonds over the thrill of the game, revenge, money, and female empowerment. Penelope Pulu, VOA News.
Game on.
Well, we'll leave you now with the sounds of Sierra Leonean artist Blaze. The song is called Dea Ya, meaning I'm here, featuring Rosie and Zamza. From all of us in Washington, have a great weekend.
It's Cammy, baby.
Oh, yeah. Blessed they are so. Anything where you want, baby girl, I could do for you. Any gift where you want, baby girl, I go buy for you. Anytime you want go, baby girl, I could go with you. Hey, I like money all day, me baby, I go trust for you. Cause you wanted a million. And you second to none. Hey, my baby. Where you go, where you come, I go there. On the sun, I go be here. Let them talk, I swear me no care. For this love, baby, I no go tire. Adea. For your love, I go be here. The girl is a must.
I've been waiting for this love, baby, long time, oh yeah. Long time, yeah. Call me, tell me anytime you want me, oh yeah. There's no need to be worried, baby, cause I got you, my one and only. And all the sweet, sweet things you do to take my breath away. You're my sweetness, baby. No, you're my weakness, baby.
Welcome to English in a Minute. Canaries are little yellow birds.
Canary in a coal mine.
Why are these cute birds in a dark coal mine?
Did you hear about Sarah? The boss took her to dinner and then fired her the next day.
The same thing happened to Jason. The boss took him to dinner and then fired him.
Dinner with the boss